The tropical Atlantic is waking up fast with two disturbances that could turn into tropical storms off the east coast of the US, plus a tropical wave likely organizing this week that could go pretty much anywhere. In this video, I'm going to show you the latest information on what's going on in the tropics right now and what to expect going forward. But first, if you're new here, feel free to hit that subscribe button for more tropical weather updates. So right now, the NHC has a red disturbance, an orange disturbance, and a yellow disturbance. We have the red disturbance right here, disturbance 1, with a 70% chance of tropical cyclone formation in the next 7 days. This is Invest 95, and it's a non-tropical area of low pressure right now, but it is producing tropical storm force winds, and conditions are favorable for this to become a tropical storm. So this right now is the storm to watch with the highest chance of becoming Tropical Storm Dexter within the next day or so. Then we have this, Disturbance 3, a 20% chance of forming in the next 7 days with another area of low pressure forming off the southeastern coast of the U.S. Now, the reason why that's happening is because you have this big frontal system that's extending off the east coast of the U.S., and so we could have several areas of low pressure that form along that and could actually become their own thing. Then we have, this is the big one, Disturbance 2. It has a 40% chance of tropical cyclone formation in the next 7 days right now, but it is this tropical wave expected to move off the west coast of Africa by late Monday, and then throughout the week, it could start developing, and possibly even a tropical depression late this week in the central tropical Atlantic, according to the latest tropical weather outlook from the NHC. And this disturbance does have a lot of potential. But first, here's a look at the live satellite imagery of Invest 95L, and it is a pretty organized area of low pressure, and if it completely separates from that frontal system, it will be able to turn into a tropical storm. Because right now, it already has tropical storm force winds of 35 knots or 40 miles an hour, and it could actually strengthen a little bit over the next 24 to 48 hours or so, becoming a decent tropical storm before it could apparently intensify, or it could just weaken down, and by this point, it would turn into a non-tropical system out past maybe the next 3 to 5 days or so. Also, it's not going to be impacting any land areas. It's really just more of a storm system showing that the tropics are getting more active. The track guidance takes it mostly harmlessly out into the open Atlantic, away from land areas, and the winds aren't going to be that strong with it. It's just going to be a low-end tropical storm, most likely. Now, here we have the GEFS ensemble forecast going into tonight, going to early on Monday. We have this area of low pressure that could become Tropical Storm Dexter from Invest 95L, and then we're going to have to watch this. This is that tropical wave starting to move off the coast of Africa and could intensify into a more significant system down the road, and this is something we're going to have to watch for a while, and here's why. So we have Invest 95L, that could intensify into a tropical storm on Monday or maybe even Tuesday, but it has a limited window for tropical development. We could get a short-lived tropical storm out of it. By Tuesday night going to Wednesday, we have another area of low pressure that the ensembles are picking up off the southeastern U.S., and this is that other disturbance that could actually turn into something, and a lot of the forecast models are showing it. But then notice this tropical wave starts quickly organizing. We already see a lot of the ensembles showing something out of it in the next 4 to 5 days, going all the way into Thursday evening, Friday. We already have something there. And then it starts heading towards the northeastern Caribbean. It doesn't look like it's necessarily a direct hit on the Caribbean, but that can change. The ensembles are still showing that there's a decent spread in the track guidance, so it could go any number of places, because it hasn't even turned into anything yet, so it's hard to say where it's actually going to go. But this is just a possibility that this could actually head towards the northeastern Caribbean, or it could turn further out in the Atlantic and actually become a fish storm. That's another possibility. But this is going into next Sunday, August 10th. And then it's still going, and it's actually starting to gain steam as it moves towards the southwestern Atlantic, headed towards potentially the northern Caribbean, maybe Florida, maybe the Bahamas, or further out in the middle of the Atlantic, maybe towards Bermuda. There's a wide variety of places this could go. Now, it's not quite as spread out as it was yesterday in the forecast ensembles so much, but we do have also the 12Z guidance. So that was the latest run. Now, the previous run actually had the tracks a little bit closer together, just north of the Caribbean, but there's still a slight variation in where this could go on the GFS, and then we'll actually compare a couple other forecast models. You can see that once we get to like August 13th or so, this is spread out even further, but it looks like it's going to go towards the east coast of the U.S. So this is going to be impacting a lot of people if this actually happens. And then it looks like it could turn towards Florida, or it could turn as this, basically there's this big area of high pressure that it was weakening down with a lot of those low pressure systems and a lot of those frontal systems chipping away at it. But now it starts to really build back in place, and then it pushes everything up along the east coast of the U.S. in this run of the GEFS ensemble forecast. And then it just spreads out, but this could actually end up impacting the east coast of the U.S. by around August 15th. So that's why we have to watch this storm system for a while, because it's just going to be building, and this could actually be moving through the Atlantic for a couple of weeks, perhaps. If going all the way from the next 2 to 3 days, starting Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then going all the way out past potentially August 16th, according to the GEFS model. And the latest ensemble forecast is showing it more or less in a similar location out all the way into August 11th and August 12th. And then here's a look at the Euro ensemble. So a different model, but still an ensemble forecast. We have, of course, Invest 95L moving off the east coast of the U.S., and then possibly another area of low pressure, again, forming around the Carolinas, really. But then notice what happens with this tropical wave. We actually get development possibly within the next 3 days, again, going into Wednesday. And then this just actually goes out into the open Atlantic. We have a lot of that frontal activity really weakening down that high pressure. We have a high below this front, and then we have the Azores high pressure system. And then really what happens is this just gets pulled towards that front and out into the Atlantic. So that would be a complete fish storm. It completely misses the Caribbean and Bermuda on this model. Now, that's a possibility, not necessarily very likely, but we'll have to see. This is, there's a wide variety in the track forecast. And then after that, the Euro ensembles are showing towards mid-August more potential for additional tropical systems in the Atlantic or close to the Caribbean by mid-August. So definitely a lot of things to watch as the hurricane season heats up. Here's a look at the GFS model. Invest 95L possibly becoming a tropical storm in the next day or so, and then that disappears, merges back with that frontal system. And then notice what happens by the end of the week on Thursday night going into Friday. We have that tropical wave west of Cape Verde in the main development region. And notice this high pressure system in the Atlantic is a lot weaker than it was a few days ago. That's also a thing that's making it more favorable for activity, because you don't have this very intense high pressure covering the entire Atlantic, producing all that stability and pushing down as much of that dry air. There's still going to be dry air, but not anything like what it's been over the past couple weeks across the tropical Atlantic. But here's a look at that storm off the southeastern U.S., and it moves into the coast of South Carolina and Georgia. But then notice we still are watching that tropical wave in the main development region, and it's going slowly, relatively slowly compared to some of the others that have been going through. And this is going to give it more time to develop into a significant storm system potentially. And so here's what happens by Monday, August 11th. So this is this is going to be there for a long time. So a lot can change over the next week or so. But this is just what the forecast models are showing right now. We have a 1007 millibar storm system north of the Caribbean, possibly a low-end tropical storm around Monday, August 11th, going into Tuesday, August 12th. It's about the same, but then notice now it really starts to intensify. And as it moves west, then we have a 999 millibars going into Tuesday night. And then Wednesday, it really starts to take off going into Wednesday night, and Thursday with 973 millibars. That could be a Category 2 hurricane. And then it slams right into the Bahamas and the east coast of Florida as a major hurricane, 953 millibars on the latest run of the GFS model. That's 270 hours out on Thursday, August 14th at around 8 p.m. That's not very likely to happen at this point, but this is just what the GFS model is thinking is a possibility. And then it runs through Florida and moves up into the southeastern U.S., and then we have potentially an area of low pressure trying to get organized in the Gulf at this point around August 18th. So definitely a lot of tropical activity, but this tropical wave is going to be one to watch for a while, as you can see. Also, the Euro model is showing something completely different. So that's why there's a lot of uncertainty at this point, but something to pay attention to. We have this tropical wave on the Euro model by Friday. It's going out into the open Atlantic. It's not doing anything to anybody. It's just because we do have this front right here that's a bit stronger on the Euro model, and it's going to be pulling it north very quickly. And so then, yeah, that's pretty much what happens. It actually strengthens, though. It strengthens into possibly a strong tropical storm, maybe even a low-end hurricane before. Then this is this weekend. So it forms quicker and moves out to sea. So that's a possibility, and it actually just goes. It intensifies to 985 millibars, and then goes out into the open Atlantic. That's a fish storm, not going to be impacting anyone. But then do have to watch around that August 18th time frame again, still watching potential storm systems possibly in the Gulf or elsewhere in the tropical Atlantic at this point. So this is not going to be only one storm system. There's going to be others down the road too that are remaining possible. Then we have a reason why things are getting more favorable in the tropics for activity, because we do have still a lot of that dry air coming down into the tropical Atlantic over the next 48 hours or so. But then this tropical wave is very moist. This tropical wave that's coming over the next couple days has a lot of moisture with it, a lot of rain and thunderstorm activity, and it plows through that dry air. It actually doesn't get completely taken out by that dry air. Even though the relative humidity is 64%, the shear is very light, which we'll show in a minute here. That, yeah, the shear is 3 knots. That's basically nothing. So that's working in its favor. And so it survives that dry air, but then once we get over in towards further west, maybe next week, that's when it really takes off, and it could intensify into something pretty bad. So that's possible, but notice that dry air is not so bad after that. You start getting more moisture into the tropics, and that's the change that's expected to happen over the next couple weeks. That's making things more favorable for this disturbance and other systems down the road. Here's the wind shear. Notice there is quite a bit of shear that was happening over the past few days, but then in the next couple days, it just drops off. You really see that even with this tropical wave, the shear is moving away from it. It's like 7 knots. You have a decent amount of moisture too. So this is favorable for development. And then notice with some of these low pressure systems, you're going to have this TUT or upper level trough, and that can create shear on tropical systems, but it can also, depending on where it is, in relation to the tropical wave, it could actually produce favorable shear. So that's another thing. That trough is actually producing favorable shear going away from the storm system, so it's really creating more of outflow. And then looking at that shear, it's dropping. That shear is extremely light. And then we get an upper level anticyclonic outflow over the storm system. That's something, when you have enough moisture too with that, plus the very warm sea surface temperatures and other favorable factors, that's a recipe for some very quick intensification. That's going to be a big thing. And notice it just blows up at that point and could become a very significant storm system. But that shear is definitely decreasing rather quickly in the tropics. And also the MJO is getting more favorable. Here's a look at that. The latest update for the MJO shows it's neutral to, in some cases, slightly favorable over the Atlantic and the Eastern Pacific as well. Not super favorable over the Atlantic in the next 5 days for like August 8th or so, but notice it's getting more favorable over Africa too. So that's a key thing, because once it's more favorable over Africa is when you could start seeing more of those healthier, stronger tropical waves moving off the coast of Africa into the main development region, where they can strengthen into tropical storm systems. And it's going to stay favorable over Africa all the way into mid-August. And then it looks like it shifts over towards the Indian Ocean, which isn't necessarily unfavorable too much. It starts looking more unfavorable over Africa going into September, but that is really far out and will most likely change. And then again, also we have very favorable sea surface temperatures, very warm ocean temperatures across the Atlantic. That remains the case. Actually, things are heating up there across the Atlantic, and even the Gulf is completely on fire, practically with sea surface temperatures over 90 degrees in a lot of places. So that's some very warm sea surface temperatures going on there. The Caribbean, the main development region, the southwestern Atlantic, even the subtropical part of the Atlantic, it's all seeing sea surface temperatures in the mid to even high 80s in a lot of places. Definitely favorable for hurricane activity. Things are definitely heating up. But yeah, we are at that point climatologically where we're going to see a significant increase in hurricanes and tropical storms happening in August. And this is where we see that sudden jump. We actually, things have been pretty quiet so far with only a couple of tropical storms, but now is the time to really be paying attention to the tropics as things heat up, as we're going into August. And then of course September and October are also big months for hurricane activity. So that's pretty much what's happening in the tropics. If you liked this video, please be sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already, share the video and make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications for more weather updates on the tropics. Thanks for watching. Extreme Weather Zone, out.